In this lesson, we will explore an important concept in JavaScript, closures. Let's start with an example. Function createCounter, and then in this function, let's initialize count to 0, and then return function, and in this function, let's increment count and also console log count. And now counter is createCounter, and now notice that counter is a function, so we can call it like so. So let's call counter, and then second time, and then third time. In this example, we created the function createCounter, which returns another function. JavaScript allows us to return functions from functions and also pass functions as arguments. In the createCounter function, we have a count variable initialized to 0. Notice that every time we call the inner counter function, it remembers the state of count and increases it by 1. This is what's called closure in JavaScript. A closure is a function that retains access to its lexical scope even when the function is executed outside that scope. Closures are created every time a function is created. In this example, the lexical scope of the inner function includes the count variable, so although we call the createCounter function only once, the counter function always has access to that lexical scope. Closures can also be used to create private variables and methods. Let's write a function createStore with parameter store name, and then letCard will be an empty array, and from this function, let's return an object with a bunch of methods in it. So the first method will be greeting, and it will console log welcome to store name. The second method will be @item, and this will return card, push, and item. And the last method will print state, so console log card. And let's see how this works. constStore is createStore with an argument Zolandia, and then store greeting returns welcome to Zolandia. Store @item catnip, and then let's print state again, and we get catnip. And let's add another item, toy mouse, and now we get catnip and toy mouse when we print state. But let's try to access store card variable or store name variable, so console log store card, and we get undefined, and console log store name, we also get undefined. In this example, we created a createStore function that returns an object with methods that can access and modify the private card variable. The card variable is private, meaning we cannot access it from outside the createStore function, which is why those lines, console log store card and console log store name, return undefined. Meanwhile, all the methods like greeting, @item, and print state retain access to the card and store name variables through their closure. To sum up, functions retain access to their lexical scope even when executed outside that scope. This mechanism is called a closure.